The process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. Let's have that again. This process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year after that document was published, 9 months after the people that wrote it came to power in the Bush administration, America had what Bush described at the time as our Pearl Harbor. And everything that has happened since 9/11, that has unfolded off the pages of that document quite demonstrably, has been justified by 9/11. Problem, reaction, solution. And no mainstream journalist has even thought of questioning the official version of 9/11. And we are being told by the left in politics, by often the Greens, though not all of them, I'm talking about the hierarchy, that Bush and Blair lied about everything. Beliar, you remember the posters? Those two lied about everything except the official story of 9/11. They told the whole truth about that in terms of how it was orchestrated. Naivety Anonymous, hello, is that you? I've got some customers for you. And they condemn people like me for having the nerve to raise the subject. Nutter, rubbish. Oh, God. I wrote a book a year, well actually I wrote it immediately after 9/11 and researched it for a year. It came out a year to the month after 9/11. It takes the official story apart. It's a fairy tale. A fairy tale. But it's been justified. It's used to justify this, and that's why it happened. Bullshit. Absolutely. The official story of 9/11 has just left the room. Even academics that rubbished it to start with are saying the official story doesn't make sense. You've got pilot organizations that are saying, pilots against 9/11 and stuff, who are saying there's no way those people who couldn't fly Cessnas could do what they did with those planes. Endless people now. There are engineers organizations against 9/11 who are pointing out that those buildings could never have collapsed as they did because of fire and steel. But no one investigates it. You know, tonight, I think it's at 9 o'clock on BBC Two, we're going to have another farce from the BBC trying to explain why the third building on 9/11, Building 7, collapsed in a mirror of a controlled demolition. And they've taken 7 years and have not yet come up with an explanation for it. And as a result of 9/11, Cheney said it's going to be a long, dirty war against the terrorists. What about a war on terrorism? What does that have that wars between countries don't have? It doesn't have an end that you can point to and say it's over. How do you know when a war on terrorism is over? You don't. That's the idea. That's why they've gone for this. And these are the people protecting us from terrorism. This is John Negroponte, the UN ambassador who was arguing in the UN for the invasion of Iraq. And this is what John Pilger wrote in the New Statesman magazine. How appropriate that John Negroponte is Bush's ambassador at the United Nations. This week he delivered America's threat to the world that it may require to attack more and more countries. As US ambassador to Honduras in the early 1980s, Negroponte oversaw American funding of the regime's death squads, known as Battalion 316, that wiped out the democratic opposition while the CIA ran its Contra war of terror against the neighboring Nicaragua. Murdering teachers and slitting the throats of midwives were a speciality. What did Negroponte go on to be? The man who was the head of US operations in Iraq after the invasion and then head of the whole of US intelligence for a while. These are the people protecting us from terrorists. These are the people that operate here and provide the excuses here. We must get bin Laden. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well, why haven't they got bin Laden? They've got satellite technology that can read your number plate from space. Oh, I've got the number plate, mate. I can't see it. He ain't got a beard. He ain't got a beard. Can't find bin Laden. This is from a Newsnight documentary. For people watching this on the internet, it's a current affairs program in Britain. A guy called Greg Palast is an American journalist, and as journalists go, he's well ahead of your normal mainstream journalist. He said in Saudi Arabia, this is a quote that was from Michael Springman, US consulate in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that was on the program. He was in that position when Father Bush was president. In Saudi Arabia, I was repeatedly ordered by high-level State Department officials to issue visas to unqualified applicants. These were essentially people who had no ties either to Saudi Arabia or to their own country. I complained bitterly at the time there. I returned to the US, I complained to the State Department here, to the General Accounting Office, to the Bureau of Diplomatic Security, and to the Inspector General's office. I was met with silence. What I was protesting was, in reality, an effort to bring recruits rounded up by Osama bin Laden to the US for terrorist training by the CIA. They would then be returned to Afghanistan to fight against the then Soviets, which I mentioned earlier. And this is Palast on the same the same report on the program. I received a phone call from a high-placed member of a US intelligence agency. He tells me that while there's always been constraints on investigating Saudis, under George Bush it's gotten much worse. After the elections, the agencies were told to back off investigating the bin Ladens and Saudi royals, and that angered agents. Why? Because the Bush family were connected into the bin Laden family in ways I describe in my books, and it was one of those to create the war on terror. This is the late Robin Cook, just before he died. Throughout the night, he was one time Foreign Secretary in Britain. Throughout the 1980s, bin Laden was armed by the CIA and funded by the Saudis to wage jihad against the Russian occupation of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda, literally the database, was originally the computer file of the thousands of mujahideen who were recruited and trained with the help of the CIA to defeat the Russians. As I said earlier, in other words, they were creating the terrorists to frighten the people with, to justify the introduction of the Big Brother state. David Davis, Shami Chakrabarti of Liberty, wake the hell up! Because they don't want to know about this. Massive connections between the bin Laden family and the Bush family. And here's the man, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was at the heart of what I've just described when he was in the Carter administration, the man behind Barack Obama. Change we can believe in. This is how the whole thing works. One force controlling both sides to create a movie to manipulate public opinion to accept changes in society that lead to the Orwellian state. Fear. Fear, the four-letter word that controls the world. Once you get people in fear, they will look outside of themselves for people or organizations to protect them from what they have been manipulated to fear. Fear is the greatest of all mass mind manipulation techniques. Because of fear, we have this introduced, justified by what I've been talking about. This is a poster from Germany in 1934. That's a poster from London today. And this is from Sheffield. Somebody in Sheffield sent me this. This is from Sheffield bus station. Every bus, tram, oh no, let's start from the top. Spit and run, you'll still get caught. DNA. Ooh, aye. Every bus, tram and interchange has DNA testing kits. Spit at the staff and you can be traced and prosecuted, even if we don't know what you look like. And your records will be on the National DNA database forever. We're free, honey. I love it. Did he spit? Get the DNA tested. What are you talking about? Here we go. Help me find and kill the terrorists. Tell on your neighbours. Tell on your friends. Tell on your family. Hey, there's some meeting going on at that Willoughby Manor Hotel. I don't know what's going on here. I think we better get over here quick. Yeah, you might bloody learn something. Get over. I promise never to question authority. I promise never to bring up my rights. Stop asking questions, they'll all want to do it. Quiet! Shut up! But you can have free speech. There you go. No problem. Free speech zones, what's that about? Free speech zones. You cannot say what you want here, but you can say it there. I've got a uniform on, so I've got a brain.